I was the crazy lady for many, many decades, preaching this, but who knew it was going to get popular like it is, but I was always going to stick with it. Depending on what your goals are is going to make the diet look 100% different, completely different. 99% of people come to me because they want to lose weight and it's not working. I'm taking a group of people to Bali on a beautiful keto retreat. You learn all my tips and tricks, but we also explore the world.
Hello, everyone. This is Nayiri from Low Carb and Fasting. Well, today's guest is certainly a familiar face in the low carb and keto space. She's a nutritionist, nutrition coach, public speaker, a recipe creator, and author of probably 8. I think last time I counted it was 8 books on the ketogenic diet and related topics like recipe, etc. How many?
20.
Oh, we'll talk about them in a minute. And she's, of course, a mom of 2 very handsome boys too. So I thought she might like me mentioning that too. Maria Emmerich, welcome to Low Carb and Fasting.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're very sweet. No, I started writing over 20 years ago, and there's over 20 books now. So
incredible.
And they're all different. They're all very different.
They are. I was thinking earlier on, you've been in this space. You've been using the ketogenic diet, not only on yourself to improve your own health, but also you've been working with clients, implementing the keto diet for over 20 years. Well, the rest of us have only just discovered it and just thinking of it as this new thing that works like magic, and it does. For most people, it does. But you've been in this space. You're a veteran low carber. I have to say, you and your husband, you work together.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, I celebrated my 26th anniversary of starting keto. I was the crazy lady for many, many decades, preaching this, but who knew it was going to get popular like it is, but I was always going to stick with it because I never once spent a dime on advertising. It was all word of mouth. Somebody felt so much better and they told their friend and their family members, and it just spread like wildfire. And it saved my life. It saved other people's lives. And I think it's the most delicious way to diet.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. So how did you discover the low carb way of eating?
Yeah, well, I was 16 years old and I wasn't feeling well. I was twice my size, and I went to my family doctor, and at that visit, she told me I had PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is basically a type 2 diabetes that affects female fertility. I was also given 3 prescription drugs for my acid reflux, my IBS, and something for my depression. And I looked at these prescriptions and I'm like, I don't want to take any of these drugs. Like, what? It was just fate that had it. I took my beautiful golden retriever to the vet that very same week. And the first question the vet asked me was, what are you feeding her? And it was a question that the doctor never asked me. She actually said it was just the cards I was dealt in life. It wasn't my fault. But let me tell you, I worked at a coffee shop where before I would go to high school, I would go to the coffee shop and I would make the scones and the muffins and the cinnamon rolls. And then I would go to high school. And then once school was over, I would go back to the coffee shop and we would close about 5:30 p.m. And whatever didn't sell that day, I got to go home with. So you can be dang sure I made extra cinnamon rolls just so I had that for dinner. And you think I'm kidding, and I'm not. That was my life. And being told I couldn't have my own children at the young age of 16 was pretty shocking to me. And so there wasn't the internet back then. But doing the research, it said PCOS was caused by excess caffeine, sugar, and carbohydrates. And I drank mochas all day and ate cinnamon rolls. Like, it was just, I had to really change my lifestyle, but I didn't want to live off of chicken breasts and broccoli because I don't like them. And that was not going to be sustainable. So I just started creating some of my favorite foods into exotic low carb recipes. And I just did that kind of for myself. And that's what I ate. And, my friends were like, Maria's weird, but they were nice. They were just joking. But what happened was I met my husband at the young age of 17. He was quite a bit older than I was. And I told him I was married before I could drink alcohol, and he knew I probably couldn't have my own children. So we started adopting. And I went to school for exercise and nutrition, exercise physiology and nutrition, but I ended up being a rock climbing guide right out of college because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. What happened was my husband lost his job, and if you know anything about adoption, every dollar you put into adoption goes back to zero when you have a job loss and insurance loss and all that. Because I didn't have insurance in my job. And so not only did we have this terrible job loss, we lost our house to the bank. We sold our cars. And it was like a terrible time for me. Like, I was super depressed. And someone said, Maria, why don't you put your recipes together to write a cookbook and help raise money for your adoption? I was like, that's a really good idea. So I literally rode my bicycle to the library because we were really poor. And I just would write, and I wrote my heart out. And I actually wrote an educational book about my journey. And that was called Keto Adapted. And it's still very popular. And people liked it. And before you know it, Halle Berry has my books. And I didn't even know that she was like eating my food, And it was all written in the stars. It was all meant to be. It was hard to know that at the time.
Interesting background. There's one particular thing I like about your recipes, the newer ones, the most recent ones, is what you call protein sparing bread, protein sparing muffins, protein sparing. So what are we talking about there when we say protein sparing?
So even back,
yeah.
What's that?
And why? Why protein sparing? So what are we talking about and why?
So way back in that first book, Keto Adapted, I talked about my pure protein days. Because I had PCOS, weight loss was very difficult. And I'm not the only person that deals with difficult weight loss. Most people that I work with are dealing with difficult weight loss. And nothing they do works. And adding a stick of butter to your day is not going to work. Okay. And so back, 20 years ago, I called it my pure protein days. And it was where I would basically eat only protein that day, lower the carbohydrates to basically zero, and lower the fat also to about 20 grams to keep your gallbladder working, to absorb minerals and nutrients like vitamins A, D, and K. But it was mainly protein, but it was a very low calorie day. So about 800 calories of only protein. And why I did this was because I didn't want to do extended fasting, because it was proven, and it still has been proven, that you will lose muscle mass if you do water fast. So I wanted to maintain my muscle but lose fat. And so only eating protein on those days will help me maintain the muscle while you burn the fat. And so technically, the medical term is called a protein sparing modified fast. I had no idea what that was back then. I called it a pure protein day. I kind of wish I would have stuck with my term, because for me, I only recommend doing it 2 to 3 days a week, not every day. Just like you wouldn't do a water fast every day. You do this protein sparing modified fast 2 to 3 days a week, and that will help any metabolic adaptation of like your thyroid and stuff from happening. I also would do an overfeeding day once a week if you do consecutive weeks of protein sparing days, 3 days a week. And an overfeeding day is not a Pizza Hut day, but it would be your fatty ribeye day, or your pork ribs, or your short ribs, or something that's very fatty, but I also kept it dairy free that whole time. And so it's kind of specific the way I do it compared to some other doctors that recommend protein sparing modified fast. Some doctors do it for 3 months in a row, no breaks. But I found a lot of metabolic adaptation of the thyroid and such happen. So you can never really go back to eating the same way. But it's very effective. And I also have recipes for, like you said, protein sparing cinnamon rolls and that type of stuff. So you don't have to wait to eat those on your protein sparing day. You can eat that anytime, because here's the thing. Most women in particular don't eat enough protein to maintain the muscle. And the older you get, the more protein you need. There's a leucine shift. So what I tell people, if they're having a hard time hitting their protein goal without going over on fat, I'm like, just pick one of my protein sparing recipes a day. That you'll for sure hit your protein goal.
Mm-hmm.
So does that explain it?
It does. It does. It's quite a mouthful, right?
Yeah, it is.
Use the acronym, I think, on your side. It's you must. I'll put the link specifically to Maria's protein sparing bread, because it's quite famous.
Thank you.
I've seen people boast about it, so I haven't tried it yet, but I'm looking forward to trying it.
I've been making that.
What are the ingredients of the protein sparing bread that actually comes out like a real big loaf, and it looks so much like bread? People love it.
Well, I have a couple different versions, but the first original version that I'm making for 2 decades is just egg whites and dried egg whites and salt. That's it. So it's truly a carnivore bread. It's just 100% protein. Now, with time, things like allulose. Have you heard of allulose?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Adding about 3 tablespoons of allulose to that loaf helps the bread caramelize and get very soft. The crust, it's just like Wonder Bread. And bread is usually a little sweet, so it adds a little sweetness to it. But more than anything, it makes it this perfect bread. So I do recommend, if you can tolerate allulose, adding that in. It's a calorie-free sweetener. Comes from sugar, but it's all natural. Comes from sugar, but it's sugar-free, I should say, or calorie-free, carb-free.
Do you think it would work with other sweeteners like erythritol, for example? It wouldn't.
Erythritol doesn't melt, no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So with all these recipe testings, you get to be a bit of a chemist. And erythritol, the same reason when you make ice cream with erythritol. Have you ever done that?
No.
No? Okay. It gets very hard because erythritol won't melt. But if you use allulose for your ice cream, it's very soft and scoopable. So you just get to learn about the different, chemistry of different sweeteners and foods and things like that. Like, will it work? I can tell you right now if it's going to work or not. So a lot of times I can think of a recipe in my head without even trying it out. And then I have like 12 recipe testers now, and I could be like, why don't you test this? Let me know what you think. And they're like, what the heck? It's so good,
Yeah. Okay. So Maria, when we say keto, I'm sure the keto diet has changed. Its definition must have changed over the past 20 years, because initially, as we know, the ketogenic diet was not new. So it was created, it's almost a century ago for epilepsy. And the original keto diet was very high in fat and probably moderate in protein. Now that definition has changed in the last probably decade. How would you define it? It gets very confusing for people, right? It does. People just don't know what you mean by keto. So,
right. I would say in the absence of carbohydrates, you will be in ketosis. Higher ketones do not correlate to better weight loss results. So when someone comes to me, I'm like, so why do you want to do the keto diet? Is it for epilepsy? Is it for seizures? Is it for Alzheimer's? Is it for cancer? Is it for weight loss? Is it for skin health? Is it for hormones? Is it for fertility? I had a client last night. It was for fertility. Depending on what your goals are, is going to make the diet look 100% different. Completely different. 99% of people come to me because they want to lose weight and it's not working. And I can tell you, like that's why I'm so busy, because most people do the keto diet with too much, with dairy, with coffee, with butter in their coffee, with nuts, with nut flours, with, they're not sleeping well, like whatever it is, like I mean, I tell people, I want to commend you because you're not eating McDonald's or whatever, but I'm going to tell you, you're doing X, Y, and Z 100% wrong. And she was last night too on the phone, even for fertility. I was like, no, just because it says keto on the box doesn't make it ketogenic. It doesn't make it healthy, And I think that's what's ruined the ketogenic name. It used to be a whole foods diet, and now it's a packaged foods diet, which I don't even want to be associated with anymore.
Yeah, I think, when there is a weight loss stall, more often than not, it's because people are eating too much fat, because people tend to think, oh, fat is sort of free food. Well, it's not. Context. Your context is very important. I mean, I'm a lean person, right? And I do heavy weightlifting. I'm type 1 diabetic as well, but that's beside the point. But I need the fat.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Protein should be considered kind of the free food, right? But protein is not a good energy source. So if you don't have energy on your body and you're lean, you need an energy source. Yeah. But 99% of people, if you look at the charts, I had a podcast yesterday and the doctor said 91% of people in the United States are in the overweight and obese category. 91%. And so those people have enough energy on their body to use. But someone like you or me, I'm running, I lift weights, I paddleboard, I swim, I boogie board, like I'm all in the, like always moving. So yes, I need to either use carbohydrates or fat for my energy. I can choose. I wouldn't pick both, but there's no essential carbohydrates. So I pick essential fatty acids, right? Because you can live without carbohydrates, and we've been proving that. So yeah, you're totally right. Like you need to pick an energy source. But again, if your body is already high fat, you can use that for energy. You can use that to make ketones. But if you eat dietary fat, your body does not have to go through the work of using your body fat for fuel because you ate it. And it's much easier to use that. And here's the thing, if you have high ketones, it doesn't correlate with weight loss. It probably means you're going to gain weight because you just ate a stick of butter, which will make your ketones higher, which matters for epilepsy and seizure, but it doesn't matter for weight loss.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I think it's a recent trend, and lots of influencers.
Not just influencers, these doctors are stating it too.
Right. And they're
these doctors are stating
cover everything with tons of butter, or even use butter as a snack. I can tell you that doesn't, forget the weight loss, which you just covered. As a type 1 diabetic who wears a CGM, I can tell you that's not great on blood sugars either. It's not. Fat does have an impact on blood sugars.
Yeah, I try to tell people, if your blood sugars are higher the next day, you probably ate too many calories the day before.
Yes.
In the form of fat. Yep. It's really amazing how that happens. But also, gosh, what I was going to say is how unnatural, our ancestors, the Neanderthals ate woolly mammoths, right? They were higher level carnivores than hyenas and wolves were. They didn't have a butter churner. They just ate the meat. That's so unnatural, right? But more than that, you're going to have a conversation with Craig, but he made all of these amazing charts for my books. And the nutrients, there's maybe a little vitamin A in butter, but the nutrients are in the protein. Yes. There's very little in fat. There's not really much in lard, tallow, butter, whatever fat source you use. There's actually more nutrients in sugar than there is in MCT oil. The nutrients are in the protein. So you cannot deny, if you give somebody, like you can eat this with all the nutrients or this with no nutrients. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose the nutrients, right?
So this is why
I'm just fighting an uphill battle.
This is why your priority is the protein, right? Almost for everyone. Or is it for everyone?
Yes. It's for everyone, but especially people who are type 1 or type 2 diabetic, they need more protein because, endogenous insulin doesn't work the same as the exogenous that you're, using. It's not working as well, right? So type 1 and type 2, they need more because the insulin's not working the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can say I'm thriving on the carnivore. I wouldn't say pure carnivore. I think the carnivore community would probably say, no, you're not carnivore, but I do include vegetables. So I would say ketovore. I include vegetables every now and again, but I'm thriving on sort of heavy protein-based diet. Do you put your clients on, so how many carbs do you allow your clients? Because that's another topic that keeps coming up. For example, Dr. Eric Westman, right? I mean, he treats people with serious metabolic issues. His limit is 20 grams. And he counts total carbs. He doesn't play around with net and deduct the fiber, etc. So what's your approach?
Yeah, if you want to fail, count net carbs. If you want to fail, subtract the fiber. I have a free macro calculator on ketomaria.com. It's totally free. If you don't know your macros, you should. You should know your macros. And it will also give you protein sparing modified macros if you want to use those. But yeah, it's going to be 20 total carbs or less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if you are an extreme athlete, you could probably get away with more, but I run marathons fasted and you don't need carbohydrates for fuel.
True.
But you do need fat for fuel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love your recipes. I love how colorful you present them, how beautiful and how easy you make them look. And they seriously are easy. They're not complicated. So anyone, as long as you have the ingredients, anyone can work with them. I think
I will say, like, I'm good with constructive criticism. And before I had children, some people said my recipes were too hard, but then I had kids.
Yes.
And I understood. I'm good with constructive criticism. If you're just saying things to be mean, I'm not, but that was something I take those to heart. And so I realized, yeah, people they're busy. They have kids, they have, whatever. So, and I mean, nobody's busier than I am, but so I understand dinner needs to be ready in an instant. And so I work smarter, not harder. And that's a big part of my coaching, is showing people, you don't like to cook, you don't have time to cook, this is what you're going to do, X, Y, and Z, and all of these 10 recipes are going to be ready for you in no time, and you're going to make extra because they taste better left over anyway. So, teaching them that is big, but yeah, I mean, I'm all about quick and easy now. People are hungry, and my kids are big now. They're hungry.
They're growing boys. They're going to need twice as much, I think, very soon. So, Maria, another question I get when I primarily work with type 1 diabetics, we help each other because we're simply not getting the help and the support from our physicians. And they thought,
I think people are afraid of it.
Keto not suitable for type 1s.
No, I think they're afraid of type 1s.
They're afraid of type 1s. And we're not afraid of our own disease. We want to beat it. I mean, we can. So I work with type 1s. We support each other. I think what makes us all unique and different, and what works for one person may not necessarily work for another, right? And it's probably our microbiome. What were your thoughts on that, Maria?
Yeah, I do. I think like the microbiome has been trashed and ruined over the last, you know, many decades, because I think there's 10,000 new chemicals that come out and are allowed in food every year. And those things our bodies will never know how to process. They're often hidden under like natural flavorings, or, you know, like it's something that you wouldn't even know is bad for you. But it's changing the microbiome for sure. And that's causing a lot of depression, anxiety. It's causing, you know, IBS, and your neurotransmitters come from your gut. So if you have a damaged gut, it's going to damage that, you know, how you feel about yourself, about others, about life, your motivation to do things. So that's going to affect a lot of different things. But what you put into your body can change that. And I believe that's why my depression went away right away. I didn't lose weight right away, but my moods changed so much. I'm like, I am in. Cutting out the grains really helped. A lot of times cutting out dairy is essential for someone with depression or anxiety. And I work with a lot of people with bipolar disorder that they thrive on a carnivore diet and they get off of medication with that. I don't force anybody to get off medication, but I do want to give them the tools and the knowledge about how it can happen if they want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I would say with dairy is, I mean, I eat dairy, but I've come to realize that I need to moderate it. So it's not like cheese, eat as much as you want. No, it does make me insulin resistant temporarily until it's cleared from my system. So for a good 48 hours, my blood sugars are running higher than I would like them to.
Yeah. It happens to a lot
of the dairy. If it's in limited quantities, I'm totally fine with it. But if it's, you know, in excess, and it's very easy, dairy is very easy to indulge in, at least for me, because it's so
average.
Yeah. So it does make me insulin resistant. And I notice weight gain, not weight gain. I don't really put on weight as such, but I notice adipose tissue, sort of fat growing in my tummy, basically, to put it that way. Yeah. It's that quick. Dairy does it for me. And if I'm not careful with my fat intake, yes, I need a fat for energy, but I have to use it as a, you know, I have to play with the fat. So too much fat today, I have to lower it tomorrow. I know I need the fat for energy, but I also need to play with that. So
yeah, so that's why the macro calculator is so helpful, is because depending on your activity level, it's going to give you a different number for sure. And your muscle mass and all that. Everybody's macros are different.
Mm. So I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see what it comes out with for me.
Awesome.
Because I don't really count my macros. And another question now, because you did mention the carnivore diet, and you and Craig, your husband, you support people if they want to adopt the carnivore diet, right? How do you calculate macros on the carnivore diet?
I mean, people may mistakenly think that there's no carbs in carnivore food, but there is. Eggs have carbs, scallops have carbs. Like there's a lot of, you know, shellfish that have carbs. It's still carnivore. Liver has carbs quite a bit. Organ meat does. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have it, but it is going to, you know, like I have a lot of eggs in a day. You do the, you know, carbohydrates in that, I'm getting close to my limit just for eggs, right? And I love scallops, and I love, you know, different things like that, you know, we have liver. So like you can get up to 20 grams quickly with a carnivore diet. But yeah, you should count it just this. The macros are just as important on carnivore. And I just finished my latest book called Carnivore for Weight Loss, because I think that's where I worked on that book longer than I have for any book, because people love the carnivore lifestyle, but a lot of them end up gaining weight. And we just posted a YouTube video about eat fat to lose fat, ? And if you read the testimonies underneath that, the testimonies go on and on and on saying, yep, I, you know, did carnivore, gained 25 pounds in a very short period of time. And, you know, like people think it's someone made a comment like, oh, if you eat a proper human diet, your body, you don't need to count macros. I'm like, if you ate crap for the last 2 decades, your body's going to need some healing. And you can't just eat whatever you want, whether it be, you know, a couple ribeyes a day with butter on them, and think that, boom, it's a proper human diet, so you're just going to lose weight. No, it's not true. But we know that because we work with so many people every day. You know?
Yeah, you have the experience. You work with so many people. You must have seen it all. So on the carnivore diet, people, I think, put on weight not because they're overeating the protein itself, but because they're overeating the fat. They're adding fat to the already fatty steak.
Yes, right. There's already fat in the steak. There's no need to add a stick of butter to it. There's fat in it. So yeah, even when I write protein sparing meal plans for like my books and stuff, it's interesting because you think that there's no fat in the, you know, the ingredients that I'm using, but at the end of the day, you're getting about 20 to 30 grams, which I'm like, huh, that's interesting. There is some fat in all of these foods. So yeah, I don't know. Like the thing is when people go from a standard American diet to keto, they probably were already eating a high fat diet. They don't need to add in more fats. You know what I'm saying? They might need to change what kind of fats they're using and get rid of the seed oils. I think that's more harmful than any carbohydrate would ever be. But I think it's more dangerous than sugar. But yeah, I don't think we need to add more fat. We're already high fat.
Yeah, most people are. Because as you said, most people come to you because they have all that stored fat. They want to get rid of it. They want to burn that fat.
Yeah.
How about fasting? Intermittent fasting.
I think intermittent fasting, yeah, I think it naturally happens with anybody who's, you know, hunger happens with a falling blood sugar. So, you know, you go to a Chinese buffet and you eat all the rice and the sugary chicken and this and that. So your blood sugar gets really high and then it starts falling down. Your stomach should be so full, but you have room for ice cream because the blood sugar is coming down at that point. What goes up must come down. However, when you eat the way we do, it's going to stay, there's going to be a little fluctuation, especially if you're not sleeping well or if you drink coffee, this and that, but it's going to fluctuate a little bit here and there, but it's nothing like a standard American diet. So you usually don't wake up hungry. That's a good sign. So you wait until a few hours after waking until you do eat. And that's great. And I also recommend not eating right before bed so you can have that human growth hormone high. So you kind of just close the window. It doesn't have to be extreme. I personally do about a 16-8, which is nothing extreme at all. I used to push it longer, but I noticed I did lose some muscle mass when I did OMAD. So I like a 16 or 18, 16-8. And I noticed my kids, it's, you know, they're in class right now. We homeschool. They still haven't eaten yet today. It's not that I'm not letting them. I'm ready to cook when they are hungry. But they personally don't wake up hungry. And so just closing the window, I think naturally happens when you don't have those blood sugar ups and downs, you know. You get hungry, but you don't get hangry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about your kids. Well, about, you know, parents. Some of your clients are parents. You know, people say, oh, children are surrounded with, you know, all that junk food and they have to go to birthday parties. They're going to be exposed to all that junk food and they want to be like their friends. And what do you do? I mean, what do you do with your kids? Because they're happy, healthy, and they love the food. I think they're your tasters, right? They test the foods, and you know, they're thriving on proper human diet. So
I'll tell you, yeah. Well, when we first adopted them, They were 1 and 2.5, and they were so small. They're from Ethiopia. They're so small, they weren't even on the growth charts. They were so small. My 1-year-old looked like probably a 4-month-old. Like I held him like in a baby carrier for months. He was just tiny, itty bitty. And within a year, they were on the growth charts. Within 2 years, they're at the 70th percentile. And we included all this information in my latest book called Sugar-Free Kids, or one of my latest books, which I wrote with Halle Berry. And a lot of people that don't even have children say that's their favorite cookbook, because most recipes are so easy, a little kid could make them themselves. And they're really tasty. Like I have Pop-Tarts in there and stuff. They are thriving, and they're now 12 and 13. And you would think that it would get harder as they become teenagers, and it's gotten easier because they understand food. They understand how that affects their body. They want to be the fastest and the smartest, and they don't like feeling sick, right? Like when they have sugar, someone gave my son a soda when he never had sugar before, and he immediately threw up all over me. I didn't know, I was on a flight and I left to go to the bathroom, and someone gave him, we have a soda streamer where we'll maybe sweeten it with some stevia, and we call it soda. And we probably shouldn't have called it that, because when we were on a flight, the flight attendant said, "Hey, Kai, do you want a soda?" Of course he said yes, not knowing that it was all sugar. But I think that's our body's natural reaction to that rush that we're not used to. But yeah, if there's anything that they want, they're like, "Hey, mom, someone had like gummy bears." I was like, "I can make those. I have a recipe for those." Like whatever it is, yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes effort, but it's totally worth it. And yeah, I mean, you can ask them yourself, like they will say that they're not missing out, and they're actually more carnivore than I ever thought they would be, because they like that food, which is expensive for me, but it's really not, because I'm not buying chips and candy and all of that stuff, you know. So yeah, I don't know. They're thriving, they're doing great. I don't feel like they're missing out on anything.
No, as long as they don't feel like they're missing out either.
No, I mean, we homeschool, so that's one thing, but they do have a lot of friends, and sometimes they want to try to educate their friends, and I'm like, oh, you know, some people don't want to know, like, but they want to change the world, because I think we expect children to grow up on, just let them be kids and have the sugar and whatnot, and then they turn 18 and they have all these metabolic diseases, and we expect them to not eat that anymore. Like, they're addicted by then. Why wouldn't we start when they're younger? And think about the healthcare system. Like, we could change a lot of that if we fed our children a proper diet. Like the school lunches, I wouldn't touch anything on the school lunch menu anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
Like it's exactly the same in the UK. It's awful. It's awful. It's junk food. I mean, who do you recommend it to? What sort of type of clients? For weight loss, do you recommend it to clients for weight loss?
I will say not necessarily carnivore for weight loss. Autoimmune issues, that's primarily like, you know, the autoimmune healing, all of that. Weight loss, I would say a protein sparing modified fast approach is better and more effective. And it's still a very, it's like a ketovore type diet where it's mainly carnivore, but you might have a little bit of spices, because, you know, a true carnivore diet doesn't even use ground pepper, you know, no onions or garlic or seasoning or anything. And I think that for me, I love a seasonings and stuff like that. I don't do like veggies and stuff, but so yeah, I like the protein sparing for weight loss, but carnivore is more for like autoimmune healing, that type of stuff.
Craig's recent book on the carnivore diet. Did you? So you're a co-author of that book?
It was my book, and I let him jump on. I'm just kidding. Yeah, he did the front matter. the science, and then I did all the recipes. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to get the book and invite
Oh,
Craig.
we'll send it to you.
Thank you so much. So I can't wait to speak to Craig about it. Craig, you call him, Craig is your husband, obviously, but for our audience, I will invite Craig Emmerich and talk to him about the science of the keto diet. Now, Craig is the chart man. Tell us about some of the wonderful work that he does.
Well, he's a scientist, and that's why he's so helpful in this line of work with me, because he's an input output guy. Like, he understands what you put in, you're going to get an output. And so when he looks at it by, when a lot of people were saying, oh, Maria, too much sugar, too much protein turns into sugar and all this, like, he didn't take that as an answer. He went and dove into the science to figure out what's really going on. If you do eat more protein, why your blood sugar may go up, what's really happening. And he's just, you're going to have a great interview with him, because he explains it in a scientific way that anybody can understand. You know, it's not over you and it's not under you. So it's like that perfect balance. So.
And I really appreciate the charts that he prepares showing, for example, nutrient density in different foods. And, you know, all those charts are useful for people because we don't see charts often.
I love charts. And he did one for like bulletproof coffee, which I find so great, because everybody wants to have, they're like, oh, I fast until 2. But they had a bulletproof coffee. I'm like, you didn't fast. You had 500 calories of pure fat with no nutrients. Mm-hmm. If you know, let's just call it what it is. You had a milkshake, you know, like you had a fatty ice cream milkshake, because it's heavy cream and butter, and yeah, let's just call it what it is. It's like a treat, you know. I wouldn't be hungry until the evening if I had that too. So yeah, his charts are just eye-opening, and you can't ignore his science. So I always love it when he takes a little time. It takes a lot of time to make them, but I really appreciate when he does.
So Maria, do you notice any difference between when it comes to weight loss specifically, because you said a lot of your clients come to you for specifically weight loss, but do you notice any difference between males and females? Because another sort of thing that people talk about, it's harder to lose weight if you're female. So have you noticed that?
I have noticed that. A lot of it has to do with muscle mass. You know, men are automatically going to have a higher muscle mass. The majority of women I work with are, you know, menopause or post-menopause, and hormones play a lot with your fat cells. Because when your ovaries no longer put out estrogen and progesterone, you can also get estrogen from fat cells, and your body's very smart. So what it does is it'll downregulate the thyroid, so you do gain some fat, so your body can get estrogen from the fat cells. So there's other ways to working around that, the natural supplements that I use with my female clients. But there's definitely men that have a lot of like weight loss issues. But I'll say, you know, when I work with the husband and wife, the husband will lose, boom, 30 pounds in a month. And sometimes the woman, especially if she's going through some hormonal changes, not sleeping at night, I'm like, you got to start these supplements. I'm just going to highly suggest them. They're going to help you to, a lot of times a woman can fall asleep, but she can't stay asleep. That's a definite hormone imbalance, and certain natural supplements will help that. And not sleeping is going to be huge to your blood sugars the next day, which is going to equate to cravings. It's going to create mood issues. Like, people undermine sleep all the time.
Obviously, I wear the CGM. I know even sort of disrupted sleep, right? I've slept well. I've slept for 8 hours, but it's been disrupted sleep, right? Because my CGM alarm was going off and my blood sugar was fluctuating, whatever. So for the next, I would say probably 24 hours, as if my baseline sort of blood sugar sort of level just goes a little bit higher. So 20 points higher in your measurement. So 20 points higher, it's just stuck in there. So, and that's because of the disrupted.
Which is going to make weight loss very difficult. Yeah. It's going to make weight loss hard. It's going to make your choices of food harder. How much you eat is going to be automatically higher to get the satiation. So yeah, for sure. And you notice that after one night.
One night. Yeah. Imagine if it was chronic, someone wasn't sleeping well night after night.
Sometimes it is.
Maria, do any of your clients use CGMs now that we mentioned them? Because they're becoming very popular these days. And people, I mean, there's nothing wrong with using if you're interested in the data, but people don't always know how to interpret the data. So they don't know what to make of it and what to do with it.
I try to encourage people to not waste their time and energy on them, because there is, first of all, there's going to be a fluctuation. So they're not super accurate. And what bothers me is someone does a high fat carnivore type diet and their blood sugars are in the 80s and they're super happy, but they're gaining weight, but they're happy with the blood sugars. But then they start prioritizing protein, and guess what? They're losing weight like mad, but their blood sugars are maybe 20 points higher. And I think it's dangerous and bad and unhealthy. And this is where we're going to transition and say, you're going to talk to Craig all about that, because I think that we do need to talk about that more, like why blood sugars will go up with prioritizing protein and why it's not a bad thing. Because that's what happens is they see the blood sugar going up and they're like, oh, I can't, this is not good. So they quit, but then they stop losing weight too at the same time. So if it's, a few points, it's nothing to be alarmed about. If it's a lot of points, I would say, did you lower the fat at all also? Or did you just increase protein and to, keep the fat at the same? Because then it's just too much fuel at that point. So lowering the fat will help bring that blood sugar down again. So that's what I don't know. I find at the end of a waste, especially same thing with like checking your ketones, like higher ketones usually mean you're gaining weight. It's not a good thing.
No, I no longer check my ketones, except when I'm doing it. I mean, I've done 2 extended fasts and I wrote blogs about them. So just to show the world, if you're type 1, you want to do extended fast, yes, you can. I mean, it's your choice, but you can.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone should. I didn't do it again. It's been a whole year and a half. I haven't done extended fast because I don't need to. I don't have the need to extended fast. But if anyone
I think there's a place
to do it,
yeah, I think there's a place for it, but I don't think it's for weight loss for sure.
I wrote blogs about it, and I was checking my ketones then just regularly, just to include in the blogs. But it doesn't give me much information. It's so variable as well. When you check ketones, I mean, it's just so variable. You can't make much sense of it. So
everything, especially since you work out, like I work out in a fasted state and I don't eat until afterwards. So guess what? My ketones are really low because I just used all the ketones for my energy. Is it a bad thing? No, it means that I'm using the ketones for energy. That's a good thing. You don't want a lot of fuel in your body anyway.
True. Yeah. And people, this is what I'm talking about. People, you can check your ketones, you can, have a CGM, but if you don't know how to explain the data and what to do with it, then it's no use. It's waste of money. And I think it gets more confusing than it should be, really. So Maria, are any of your clients children? So under 18, by children, I mean under 18s, because more and more under 18s now are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, with fatty liver disease. I mean, fatty liver disease, I didn't even, fatty liver disease was always something alcoholics used to be diagnosed with. So are any of them under 18?
Lots of them. I work with a lot of like families with, recent type 1 diagnosis, and they're, don't know what to do with their child. They're nervous. But I will say I posted, I think it was 2 weeks ago on my Instagram wall, a little girl. She was diagnosed with fatty liver, and her before after picture, and it was reversed in 2 months. But she also lost a massive amount of weight. But more than anything, she's like, oh, my tummy doesn't hurt anymore. You know, her stomach always hurt. And like, we think that we're doing ourselves a disservice by not letting our kids have this candy and stuff. And she was so happy to not feel that pain anymore. And she was only 10, you know. But yeah, sadly, I am working with more kids, but maybe it's not sad because I see people wanting to change. And I feel that my kids, they're inspiring. I hear that all the time. They're inspiring other children to eat this way. Cause like Micah and Kai are so healthy and they like it. I'll try it, you know? So that's probably the coolest testimony I get. Like, my son was not going to eat it, but then he saw Kai try it and he's like, okay, I'll try it. You know, that's cool.
And they don't know. I mean, your sons don't know any other way of eating. So it's not like they're feeling like they're deprived of all the foods they used to eat, because this is how you raise them. Maria, you adopted them when they were both over the age of 1.
Yeah.
Had they been babies, what do you think you would have fed them? Because that's another topic that keeps coming up. So, you know, the whole family is carnivore or whatever, and they have a baby. What are we going to feed the baby if the baby is weaning off milk? So,
right. I do have a blog post, what the First Foods for Babies is called, because, well, legally we did adopt them when Kai was 4 months old, but we were not allowed to bring them to the United States. So that was a whole nother story. The United States was big jerks about it, but anyway, Kai was drinking soy formula when I went to the orphanage. And so he went basically from formula to coming to live with us. And I had a best friend pump breast milk for me. So if you don't have a best friend that can do breast milk for you, you can buy it from a breast milk bank. And I would highly recommend that. But his first food besides breast milk was bone marrow with like savory jello. We also ate a lot of salmon, and I would puree that in a blender with bone marrow and bone broth. I have videos of him screaming. He would do his sign like more and more for bone broth. Like he would drink that from a bottle all the time. He loved it. We would eat a lot of ground beef, and then I would just keep it really small pieces so he could pick it up by himself, you know, and learn to chew that. But it was what we ate in a different form.
Yeah.
There was no excuses. I did not buy special baby food for him. I didn't buy special anything for him. It was what we ate in a different form, whether it be salmon or ground beef or the bone marrow. And yeah, I feel that as parents, sometimes they want to have the goldfish crackers, and that's why they buy them. It's true.
Maria, we're running out of time, and I wanted to respect your time. One last question. We covered the majority of your clients, who probably middle-aged people who want to lose weight. We covered the babies, we covered children, babies. How about the elderly?
The elderly need a lot more protein, like big time, because that leucine shift is huge now. You're losing muscle mass at a massive rate. It's called sarcopenia of aging. And you don't want to lose muscle mass as you age, because that keeps you youthful. Your bones are super important to your muscle mass. So that's super important. So prioritizing protein and the nutrients, right? But a lot of times their digestion is poor. And so looking into like hydrochloric acid with pepsin, something for that digestion, is really, really helpful. But that's what I would say, you know.
But then you also have the problem of they can't eat bigger portions. So they know they need to eat that much protein.
Yep. So
But it's
prioritizing protein is
not,
important.
it's physically not very easy for them to eat that much protein.
Well, like 100 grams of protein is not that much. I just don't think people realize that if you prioritize protein, it's easy to get that in. It's like 2 chicken breasts. That's not that much, you know? But there's also like in the United States, there's some beef protein powders out there. So I'll make a shake with Equip Prime Protein. It's made from beef and it's only like beef protein, and then you can get it unflavored if you want to, or you know, whatever, vanilla. And it's just beef protein, vanilla, and stevia. And then you can make a shake with that and easily get, like, I'll do 3 scoops of that sometimes for a shake, and that's 60 grams of protein right there. Boom, you know? So that's good.
Just a
Well,
few.
I would love to talk about my retreats if we could do that.
Let's do it.
Okay. I just want to say you're in the UK, right?
The UK.
So I actually leave on Monday to do a retreat. I do these, a couple companies reach out to me to do keto retreats. So I'm like, absolutely, I say yes to everything. So on Monday, I leave for Bali. I'm taking a group of people to Bali on a beautiful keto retreat. You learn all my tips and tricks, but we also explore the world, which is super fun. We're going to Italy in June, which you should join us. And we're going to Croatia in September and South Africa in November. And Craig will also be on the South Africa trip. And it's, you know, we're going on safari, and we're going to, have you ever heard of people going into a cage with a shark, or, you know, the sharks around them?
No, that's interesting.
Always, yeah, I've always wanted to do that ever since I was a little girl. And so I finally get to do that. But it's a very adventurous trip where Croatia is more, we're treated like kings and queens. And we even had like this beautiful, we made homemade mozzarella overlooking the ocean. Like it's like, I usually miss my kids when I travel, but I don't on these trips because they're packed with so much fun and adventure. And what I love about them is I'm planning everybody else's life. And what I do at these retreats, I actually don't like to know the whole itinerary, because I just show up at the airport. There's a private car to pick me up, to take me to a beautiful hotel. The hotels are already planned out. The transportation's already planned out. The events are already planned out. The dinners, all the tickets are paid for and done. Like, you just show up and you're like, okay, what's up? And it's like the coolest feeling. Like, I feel so free, and it's like, I don't know, I just love it, if you can't tell.
Yes, I can tell from your voice. It's so exciting. In fact, you got me excited all about it too. So I'll see if I can join one of your retreats too.
Yeah.
Won't be this year, but maybe next year. So how do you ensure everyone gets sort of keto meals?
Well, there's no judging. So if someone comes to Italy and they want gelato or limoncello, I don't care. You go do, because you have plenty of time to go explore, you know, during the day by yourself. But when we have group meals, you are always offered, we had carnivores come, so they needed 100% carnivore meals, and they were offered that. It's very easy to eat carnivore in Italy, in my opinion. But they made my chicken parm recipe. They're like, we don't know what keto is, but we followed your recipe. Here you go. They also made my flourless chocolate torte for us. But yeah, it's, you know, if you want it, some people are type 1s and they have to stay keto for their health, right? And so it's nice for them to come on a trip and know that it's safe, and that they'll always have options of, you know, good quality food. But again, like, I'm not a judgy person. I don't care if people want wine or limoncello or whatever, and that doesn't bother me at all. Because some people brought a friend who wasn't keto, and so they had something else, which I don't mind.
Now, Maria, I have an affiliate link with you. So are the retreats included? What do you think?
The retreats
or
are not, because it's not my company. They just hired me to be like the host, but all of my ebooks, you know, we talked about protein sparing. I have 4 amazing protein sparing ebooks that have detailed meal plans with grocery lists that are delicious. And I don't guarantee people would lose 20 pounds in a month if they followed it to the T. But also that carnivore for weight loss ebook will be out there soon. But even if somebody wants to become a certified keto coach, because I can't keep up with clients, if you got someone to be a certified keto coach, you have that affiliate. So rock it.
Perfect. I'll put the link below as well, people. So, and I'll put all of Maria's links and the direct links to some of the retreats that.
Yay! Thank you.
To her website. So I can't thank you enough for your time today, for the great insights. It was my dream to actually chat with you because I've been following you for a very long time. So I'm glad we did that today. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you. You are beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now.